The one with Monica's boots is the 10th episode of the 8th season of Friends. This is directed by Kevin Bright, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And there are 3 main parts to the narrative, so as usual, I'll go through each of the main parts. I will start off with Monica, and then I'll talk about Joey next, and then I'll finish up with Phoebe. Monica has bought some rather expensive boots, and Chandler's not exactly thrilled about this, but Monica says that they'll go with everything. She'll really get the use out of them. They are causing her excruciating pain. And of course, she doesn't want to tell Chandler this, because then she'll have to admit that he was right. Buying the boots was a bad mistake. And he tells her that you can wear the boots to a work party, and as he says, every cloud has a supple leather lining, which I love and hate because that is something I often say. Like many Friends fans, Friends just becomes part of my daily vocabulary. That is one of those things which I love and hate, because to non-Friends people it probably sounds a bit bizarre. And Monica, when they're walking to the party, we have a rare outdoor scene, which we don't get that much, and she has to confess to Chandler that the pain's just too much. She can't walk any further. Chandler takes a brief moment to delight in being right, because he doesn't usually know what that feels like, and then he agrees to give Monica a piggyback because her feet are in agony. And then she realises she doesn't have the boots. She asks Chandler where the boots are, and he says to her, "Why don't you check in one of my saddlebags while I chew on a bale of hay?" Which I rather enjoyed. And Monica says goodbye to the tan version of the boots that are currently on sale. And it's a nice part of the episode. I think the big takeaway there is that just be honest with your partner. If you've made a mistake and your feet hurt, just admit it, because there's no point in suffering through the pain. Also, maybe think twice about buying expensive footwear unless you're confident they're not going to hurt. So it's a fun part of the episode. I really liked Chandler in this one. And I think Monica, for the most part, made some good decisions eventually. We then come to Joey, and initially he asks Rachel to talk with his sister Dina because she wants to get into fashion. She's played by Marla Sokoloff, and when she's alone with Rachel, she admits she doesn't care about fashion. She's pregnant and she needs Rachel's help. And that's quite interesting that she knew Rachel was pregnant, because that must mean that Joey talks about Rachel to his family. And that must mean Joey talks with his sisters on a regular occasion, which I thought was a really sweet thing to think about. And she doesn't know how to tell Joey, but Rachel tells her, you just have to tell him. But they do go along prepared with a sandwich to distract him. And while he took the sandwich, he was really annoyed by this and hurt, and I think most of all worried for her. So what does Joey do? Well, he goes to get the father. This is Bobby, played by Marc Rose, and I have to say, Bobby is an absolute delight. He's a great character. He's not the most... Well, how do I say this nicely? I can understand why Joey wouldn't want him to be the father of his sister's baby. But at the same time, he seems like a genuinely nice, caring person based on the brief interaction we have with the character. And I really liked what the character brought to this. And I think all of the right things were said. And ultimately, Joey just needed to be there as a supportive brother and soon-to-be uncle. And I thought it was a nice way to kind of wrap everything up. So that part of the episode I really liked. And then we come to Sting and Phoebe. It turns out that Ben goes to school with Sting's son. And Ben and Sting's son are not friends because, well, Ben's mothers are, as he calls them, lesbians. And Phoebe decides that if she wants to get tickets for Sting's upcoming concert, Ben and Sting's son needs to be friends. So she goes down to Ben's school, which is a terrible idea. And she meets Ben's teacher. Ben's teacher hasn't met Susan yet, so Phoebe pretends to be Susan, and she gets the information to set up a meeting with Sting's son's mother. And Phoebe goes to her house, and we have Trudie Styler playing herself, Sting's spouse. And, well, there are several references in this. There's a reference to the police, which I loved. At the beginning of the episode, Phoebe is singing Ross Can, and I remember being confused by that when I first watched this episode. I don't remember a lot of my initial reactions to Friends episodes because it's been a long time since I started watching it. I've seen the episodes many times, but I do remember being confused by that because I knew nothing about Sting. I had never heard the song Roxanne. So there are things in this that took me probably a good few tries to get round to understanding. And of course, this is not at the time when we had internet at our fingertips. Was I still on dial-up then? No, I don't think I was on dial-up internet at that time, but certainly the information wasn't as readily available. And over the years, I came to understand what on earth Phoebe was going on about. And after her remark about the police, she produces a disposable camera, which I love. And she is obviously escorted out. And at the very end of the episode, Ross gets the tickets to the concert. And because Phoebe will be more than 50 yards away from Sting or anybody in his family, it's okay. She can go. And I enjoyed Ross's response to that. Ross was just really glad that he got the tickets, not aware of what went down with Phoebe. Although I feel like the school would probably have heard about that. So Ross would probably find out at some point. It's a fun episode. I think all of the narratives are very well written, very funny. Do I have any personal highlights? Chandler's delight at being right for a change, I thought was quite nice. And Rachel being there and Joey ultimately being a supportive brother, I thought was quite sweet. Bobby as a character, I just really liked. I think he's great. I really like him. I wish we got to see more of him. Marla Sokoloff is brilliant. And just the whole story with Phoebe. So yeah, no complaints at all. Needless to say, the one with Monica's boots is a pretty great episode of Friends. I'm sure it's one that I'll always really thoroughly enjoy.